For over a year, I'd supplied my co-workers with gourmet lunchboxes from my father's high-end restaurant, the Miramar. Each box came with 2 proteins and 2 sides and normally sold for $18. I charged them $10. Everyone loved the arrangement until Garrett, our new intern, arrived and treated it like a criminal enterprise. $10 for a 2 and 2 combo, he announced to the open office. Are you kidding me? I can get this made for $5. Tyler's pocketing $5 a box and selling 100 boxes a day. That's $500, $180,000 a year. He's buying a new car off our backs. This is insane. Chelsea frowned. Actually, Garrett, it's a great deal. Anything decent outside costs at least $18. Tyler's practically charging us cost. And the Miramar is a massive chain. Another coworker added. They even set up a private lunch line just for this office. It isn't open to the public. Garrett scoffed. Cost is $10. Pork is dirt cheap right now. Even if you filled the box, it wouldn't cost that much. My uncle owns a restaurant. I know exactly how this industry works. Folded his arms and looked around the room. If you trust me, I can get you the exact same setup. 2 proteins, 2 sides for $5. Pure cost. I won't take a penny. I just can't stand watching someone treat his coworkers like cash cows. Hands began rising around the office for the first time in a year. I felt completely relieved. This thankless chore had cost my family nearly $100,000 annually. Now it was finally someone else's problem. That day's lunch had just arrived. The signature box contained 5 thick pieces of slow braised short rib and a whole herb roasted chicken quarter. Sides were organic tomato paste, pasta and sesame, marinated chicken salad accompanied by house pickled relish, and a bottle of fresh pressed seasonal fruit juice. The Miramar's culinary team prepared everything specifically for our office. For a year, the quality had never slipped. The box retailed for $18, but I charged my coworkers only $10. Tyler, these short ribs are unbelievable. Your chef Michelin starred. The chicken is huge. I can barely finish it. The tomato is so fresh and the dressing is perfect. I live for this juice. You can actually taste the fruit pulp. Those were the compliments I heard every day. But Garrett ruined the mood with a laugh. What? You pay $10 for this? You're getting ripped off. The actual cost is $5. Max pointed at me as if he were exposing a corrupt businessman. Tyler, we're coworkers. Taking advantage of us. Like this is dirty. My fork stopped above my bowl of plain pasta. $5. The organic tomatoes and chicken alone cost more than that. Was Garrett planning to serve them synthetic meat? Chelsea immediately pushed back. A lunch like this would cost $18 to $20 anywhere else, and the quality wouldn't come close. I can't even finish mine. The Miramar is a top-tier national chain. Another coworker said. It's clean and reliable. We know we're eating high-quality food. Garrett smirked. Reliable? Those ribs are clearly cheap. Frozen imports. Probably sitting in a commercial freezer for 6 months. That's how people get food poisoning. He pointed at the chicken next. And those are factory-farmed birds pumped full of hormones. Eat enough of that and your endocrine system is ruined. Restaurants have insane margins because they use garbage. Then he lowered his voice. I'm not trying to stir up trouble, but if the food is so great, why doesn't Tyler eat it? Kitchen makes him a completely separate meal. Isn't that suspicious? The room went silent. People stopped chewing. The luxurious lunchboxes suddenly looked like containers of toxic waste. Courtney gagged and shoved her plate away. Tyler, you want to explain this? We understand that you want to make money, but you shouldn't feed us dangerous low-grade food just to line your pockets. Murmurs spread across the office. If you wanted to profit, you should have just said so. Charge us $15 or $18. Don't claim it's had costs while feeding us food that could make us sick. Is your conscience really okay with this? I stared at them. What profit? My family's brand had been built over decades on a strict never-frozen policy. We didn't use ordinary commercial meat. The short ribs were locally sourced, organic beef. The chicken was free-range and organic certified. The $10 I charged didn't cover the ingredients. Labor, utilities, packaging, and delivery were absorbed by my father's flagship kitchen. It run the numbers the month before. We were losing nearly $100,000 a year on this favor about the price of a brand new luxury car, just so my Coworkers could eat well. Garrett covered his mouth, pretending to regret his outburst. Oh man, my bad. I shouldn't have said anything. I didn't mean to ruin your side hustle, he said. It's just that I grew up in this business. I used to handle the books for my uncle's diner. A lunchbox like this costs $5 to make. Max, if you want to save some money, I can talk to him. He'll do it for $5 completely. It cost. Courtney's eyes lit up. Seriously? $5 for 2 meats and 2 sides? Of course, we're a team. Why would I lie to you? Think of all the money you'll have left for coffee and drinks. Excitement swept through the office. Count me and put me down for the whole month. They crowded around Garrett's desk to sign up. Courtney passed my cubicle and gave me a smug, tight-lipped smile. Tyler, you see how it is. No one wants to pay your bloated prices anymore. You should refund everyone's remaining balance. Without arguing, I opened Venmo and transferred every dollar of their unused lunch balances back to them. Then I called my father. Dad, shut down the office lunch service. Don't need to deliver here anymore. A huge sigh of relief came through the phone. Thank God. We can finally stop hemorrhaging money. I hung up and returned to my plain noodles. I hadn't eaten the lunch boxes because the food was bad. I undergone major gastrointestinal surgery the previous year and was still on a strict, bland diet. No oil, spice, or heavy seasoning for 12 months. My daily meals had been millet porridge and handmade wheat noodles in clear broth. The refund notifications chimed across the office. The complaints began. We got this month's refund. But what about the past year? Someone demanded that's $150 a month. We overpaid more than $18 a year. That's a luxury bag, $150 per person times 20 people. Another coworker calculated. That's $3,000 a month more than Tyler's salary. He was using our money as his allowance. No wonder he wears designer clothes and expensive watches. We paid for them. I didn't explain. No one would believe that a millionaire's son was working a mid-level logistics job for experience. They certainly wouldn't believe my family had been losing $100,000 a year feeding them. Any defense would only sound like a guilty man covering his tracks. I finished my noodles, sealed the container, tied it in a bag, and dropped it into the trash. Heavy thud cut through the murmuring. Every eye turned toward me. Disgust, disdain, and self-righteous fury filled the room. I met their stares calmly. If you truly believe I defrauded you, file a report with the Better Business Bureau. If you're concerned about the food quality, contact the Department of Health. The Miramar will cooperate with any official inspection. Then I walked out. Chelsea hurried after me. Tyler, are you okay? I'm fine. Honestly, they're jumping to conclusions. No, you weren't ripping us off. I gave her a small smile. Thanks, Chelsea. But really, I'm okay. And I was losing this burden was a dream come true. A year earlier, Courtney had tasted a bento box one of my father's chefs prepared for me. She begged me to bring her one and offered to pay. At first, it was only her, then a few others joined. Soon the entire department was ordering. Every day, I coordinated menus and recorded everyone's dietary restrictions, and had severe type 2 diabetes and needed completely sugar-free meals. Janice hated cilantro. Greg was dangerously allergic to shellfish. Bobby couldn't tolerate even a hint of spice. I labeled and double-checked every order. For an entire year, not one person got sick. My father used to tease me about it. Coworkers are treated like royalty. Tyler, you've never paid this much attention to my diet. I'd poured my time, energy, and family's money into keeping those people happy. In return, they called me a criminal. When I returned to my desk, Garrett sidled over, wearing a look of practiced guilt. Hey Tyler, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to steal your thunder. I was just trying to do right by the team. Lean closer. Everyone says you're a chill guy. You aren't mad at me, right? Mad. He had just saved my family $100,000. I almost wanted to buy him a drink. No, I said expressionlessly. I'm not mad. He grinned and threw an arm over my shoulder. I knew you were a team player. Since you already have everyone's dietary restrictions written down, can you forward me the spreadsheet? It'll save me the trouble of making a new one. Paused. Oh, and since you won't need that heated delivery van anymore, could I borrow it? It seems wasteful to let it sit around. I stared at him. The van was a specialized medical-grade food transport vehicle with built-in UV sanitation. My family had purchased it specifically for the office delivery route. This kid had just accused me of poisoning our coworkers for profit, and now he wanted to borrow the van. I pulled his arm off my shoulder. No way. His smile disappeared. Wow, Tyler. Seriously? It's just a van. You aren't even using it anymore. What's the big deal? Several coworkers immediately joined in. Honestly, Tyler, that's petty. You made so much money off us. You probably bought it with our cash. Anyway, least you can do is let Garrett use it. We're all trying to get by. Don't hold a grudge just because he found a better deal. You're hoarding it out of spite because he exposed your little racket. Their words cut sharply. A year of labor. A year of customized gourmet meals. Massive loss for my family. And this was the thanks I received. I looked at them, letting my gaze turn cold. The van belongs to the restaurant group. If you want to lease it, contact corporate. I don't have the authority to lend it out. I paused and, let me make this clear. I have never made a single cent from any of you. If you want to sue me or report me, go ahead. I welcome it. But if I hear one more slanderous word about my character, I'll involve my family's legal team. The office went quiet. Garrett flushed and muttered under his breath before retreating. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Tyler, this spreadsheet is insane. Needs sugar-free. Janice can't have cilantro. Bobby needs zero spice. It's all cooked in one big pot. How am I supposed to separate all this? Are you sure you didn't make these up to make it look difficult? He was accusing me of sabotaging him, as if the kitchen hadn't spent a year preparing individual portions for every order. I replied with 3 words. Ask them yourself at 5:30. I clocked out for the first time in a year. I didn't have to stay late, verifying menu adjustments or remind the head chef about Hank's low glycemic meals. I drove home with the windows down, feeling lighter than air. I had just poured myself a glass of water when my phone rang. It was Janice, the HR manager. Tyler, I heard what happened today. Garrett's blunt. You shouldn't take it personally. He's only looking out for the team. She continued before I could answer. The thing is, we've gotten used to the Miramar's food. If you can match Garrett's $5 price, we'd be happy to keep ordering from you. We won't make an issue of whatever margins you were making before. Just have the kitchen use the same high-quality ingredients, and we'll keep supporting your family's business. I nearly laughed. He spoke as if allowing us to lose even more money were a generous favor. No, thank you, I said flatly. My family had money. If I wanted to feed them for free, we could afford it. But those ungrateful parasites didn't deserve another crumb. Janice's tone sharpened. Fine. I gave you a chance to make things right. Don't come crying to me when you regret this. I hung up, laughing for real. The hot potato had officially been passed. The next day, Garrett's delivery arrived, 30 minutes late. By then, the office was practically growling with hunger. But when everyone opened their containers, the room fell silent. The short ribs were mostly bare, grizzly bones with a few scraps of meat. The chicken drumsticks were tiny, dry, and shriveled. Chelsea tried to bite into hers, but it was so tough. She had to tear at it with her teeth before finally giving up. Vegetables were limp, yellowish mush. The rice was gray and dry with a damp cellar-like smell. Everything floated in a strange reddish oil with an unpleasant chemical sheen. Why do these ribs taste so weird? Someone asked. They're completely bland, and they smell fishy. This chicken is like leather. I can't chew it. The rice is yellow. Why does it taste bitter? Everyone looked at Garrett. He was busy stuffing a relatively decent-looking piece of meat into his mouth. Tastes fine to me, he said around the food. This is organic pasture-raised pork. It isn't that soft commercial stuff. It's leaner, which means it's packed with nutrients. He held up his chicken, and the chicken is free-range. That's why. It's firm. It's real muscle, not fat. Then he gestured toward the rice. It doesn't have that fake shine because it's completely natural and unprocessed. Commercial rice is coated in synthetic wax to make it look pretty. That stuff is toxic, honestly. Why do you think some people only eat noodles instead of rice? At my desk, I quietly enjoyed the fresh homemade wheat noodles my mother had packed for me. Chelsea glared at him. Stop taking shots at Tyler. Isn't even part of the lunch program anymore. He brought his own food because he likes noodles. It has nothing to do with the rice. Garrett smirked as if he'd won. Sure, Chelsea. Or maybe he knows he got caught. The Miramar probably threw those noodles in as part of his kickback. Otherwise, why is he still getting food from them? Courtney gave Chelsea a knowing, ugly smile. Honestly, Chelsea, you defend Tyler awfully hard. Do you have a crush on him? Seriously? Another coworker added. You're lying to defend a guy who ripped us off. Have some self-respect. Garrett's lunch is perfectly fine. It's cheaper and we aren't being scammed. Chelsea's face turned bright red with anger and embarrassment. Unable to find the words to argue, she slammed down her chopsticks and stormed out of the break room. Behind her, Garrett's smile widened. Then his phone rang. The color drained from his face as he answered, and whatever he heard on the other end made his hand begin to shake. The plastic fork in Garrett's hand did not fall. It simply trembled, the cheap gray tines vibrating against the styrofoam partition of his half-eaten lunch box. Garrett? Courtney asked, her splotchy face still flushed with the mean, triumphant laughter she had used to chase Chelsea out of the room. What is it? Did your uncle say he's preparing the roast beef for tomorrow? Garrett didn't answer. His phone, pressed hard against his ear, was emitting a thin metallic screech of panic that was easily audible in the sudden silence of the break room. Mr. Cole, a frantic voice on the other end gasped, the sound of sterile electronic beeping and rushing footsteps echoing in the background. This is the emergency room at County General. We've just admitted a patient named Gregory Vance. He's in severe anaphylactic shock. His throat is closed, and his blood pressure is dropping. The paramedic found one of your diner's receipts in his pocket. The gray, greasy pallor that rose from Garrett's collar was instantaneous. I told the kitchen, Garrett stammered, his hand shaking so violently he nearly knocked over his plastic water cup. I wrote it on the slip. No. Shellfish. Greg is allergic to shellfish. The kitchen used a pre-cooked, commercial-grade fish paste to thicken the gravy. For the short ribs, Mr. Cole, the medical coordinator on the phone said, her voice dropping into a cold, flat register. It contains high levels of concentrated oyster and crab extract. We need your uncle's commercial license number and the supplier's batch codes immediately. The police are already on their way to the diner. The phone slipped from Garrett's fingers, hitting the linoleum floor with a hollow, plastic clack before sliding under the vending machine. The break room went dead silent. Every eye in the room slowly shifted from the phone on the floor to the gray, yellowing meat in their own styrofoam containers. Max, who was currently holding a half-chewed piece of the grizzly bone short rib, suddenly went pale, his hand going to his throat as his chest heaved with a sudden, violent wave of nausea. He used fish paste? Max whispered, his face turning a sallow paper gray color. In the beef gravy? Garrett! Courtney shrieked, her voice losing all its sweet, fawning polish as she stood up. My stomach. I've been feeling this sharp, burning pain since I took the first bite. What did your uncle put in this food? I stood up slowly from my desk in the corner. I picked up my empty noodle container, tied it neatly in a plastic bag, and tossed it into the trash can. The transition is complete, Garrett, I said, my voice carrying the flat, level rhythm of a dry logistics report. I believe the health department has a 48-hour response window for active contamination cases. You should probably tell your uncle to turn off the stoves. I walked out of the break room, the wail of the ambulance siren in the distance already beginning to cut through the quiet of the office block. The next 3 days were a masterclass in silent decay. In the past, whenever the office had their petty disputes, the break room would remain immaculate, the leftovers cleared, the trash bins emptied. Now the room felt cold, smelly, and entirely too quiet. Garrett's uncle's diner had been shut down on Tuesday morning. The health department's inspectors had found 3 active violations, including the use of expired, uninspected meat from an unlicensed local farm and the complete absence of a separate prep area for allergen-sensitive orders. The fine was $40,000, and the diner's business license had been suspended indefinitely. Tyler, Janice, the HR manager, said, stopping by my cubicle on Thursday afternoon. She looked pale, her hair unwashed and wild, her eyes red-rimmed from 3 days of sleeplessness and endless meetings with the company's legal team. The Winger Group has officially filed a corporate liability suit against us. Greg is still in the ICU, Tyler. His family is talking about permanent neurological damage from the oxygen deprivation. I know, I said, my fingers continuing to move across my keyboard as I processed the quarterly transport logs. We need the Miramar back, Tyler, she whispered, her voice carrying a raw, desperate pleading. The board, they've agreed to pay $15 a box. We'll sign a 3-year exclusive contract. We won't make any more issues about your father's margins. Just, please call him. Tell him to start the deliveries. Again. My father's kitchen is currently preparing the winter menu for our flagship restaurant, Janice, I said, not looking at her. They've already reassigned the delivery van to the Northern Harbor route. We don't have the capacity for office favors anymore. Tyler, please, Janice cried out, her voice rising in a high, hysterical wail that made several co-workers in the neighboring cubicles look up. If we don't get the Winger Group to drop the suit, the company will have to lay off 30% of the staff, including Garrett. His uncle's diner has already gone bankrupt. Janice, I said, turning my head slowly to look at her. My face was calm, symmetrical, and entirely empty of the warmth I had used when I spent 30 minutes every morning verifying her sugar-free tea. When you told me to not come crying to you when I regret this, I believed you. I'm just following your advice. I blocked her number, turned my phone face down, and went back to my logs. The Friday board meeting of our logistics firm was called for 10 a.m. The atmosphere in the boardroom was icy. The 6 directors, men who had been my father's business associates for 10 years, were sitting in silence, their eyes fixed on the financial terminals in front of them. Our CEO, a man named Mr. Harrison, sat at the head of the long mahogany table, his tie slightly loose, his face pale. We've lost the Northern District contract, Mr. Harrison said, his voice carrying a dry, heavy authority. The Winger Group has officially initiated a quiet withdrawal of their commercial paper. We've lost 40% of our short-term liquidity in 48 hours. It's a tactical move, Garrett's uncle, who had been brought into the room by the legal team, stammered, his face gray and hollowed out by a week of legal pressure. The food poisoning was an accident. It was a single cross-contamination case. We can pay the medical bills. We don't need to involve the board. The food poisoning was a felony, Mr. Cole. A calm, deep voice cut through the room. The door to the boardroom opened. My father, Richard Henson, walked in. He was wearing his bespoke charcoal suit, his hair neatly combed, his green eyes carrying that quiet, absolute authority that had made the Miramar a national legend. Behind him walked Marcus, our chief legal counsel, carrying a silver tray with a single, white leather folder. Richard, Mr. Harrison gasped, half rising from his chair. What is this? This is an internal board meeting. We haven't finalized the Miramar's audit yet. The audit is finalized, Harrison, my father said, taking his seat at the far end of the table. And the Miramar? We've purchased the remainder of your company's commercial paper this morning. The Gray Group is officially out of the logistics sector. The company is under our sole control. The board members gasped, several of them looking between my father and me in shock. Tyler, Mr. Harrison said, his voice trembling as he looked at my clean suit and my platinum watch, the watch the co-workers had claimed was bought with their allowance. You're Richard Henson's son? He is, my father said, his voice dropping into a register that made the loose ice cubes in Mr. Harrison's glass rattle. He's been working in your department for 12 months to complete his logistics residency before assuming his position as vice president of the Miramar Group. And the $100,000 you claimed he defrauded from you. My father threw a thick folder onto the table. It was the exact cost of the medical-grade food transport van we leased to your firm for $1 cash last winter, a van that your intern Garrett attempted to borrow to transport his uncle's spoiled toxic pork. He stood up, looking down at his old associates. The motion to terminate the management contract is approved. You have 10 minutes to clear your desks, Harrison. The coastal town of Mendocino was quiet in the winter. The air smelled of salt, pine needles, and the cold mist that rolled off the Pacific every morning. The only sound was the distant, rhythmic crash of the waves against the black cliffs of the harbor. I sat on the wooden deck of my small, gray-shingled cottage, a cup of hot chamomile tea in my hand. My stomach was completely healed, my digestive tract fully recovered from the surgical gas of last year, my daily meals no longer restricted to plain noodles and clear broth. Beside me on the table lay my drawing tablet, its screen displaying a clean, elegant landscape design for our new municipal park project. Tyler, Chelsea said, walking out of the kitchen with a plate of fresh, warm cinnamon rolls. She sat down beside me, pulling a wool blanket over our knees. Are you cold? I looked down at the design on my screen, then at the golden sunset over the ocean, and finally at her warm, genuine smile. No, I said, leaning my head against her shoulder. I'm very warm. Across the water, the first yellow lights of the harbor were starting to glow in the dark, but I didn't look at them. I closed my laptop, took a sip of my warm tea, and let the clean, cold wind off the water carry the last dry leaves of the past away into the endlessly beautiful horizon ahead.